question of great seriousness. Should we seek to destroy all that is? Asking this question philosophically. Should we seek to destroy all that is? There's one sense in which we can destroy all that is. Because all that is, in one sense, is constructed through the world of language. Without language, we would be locked and trapped in impulse. There's another sense that we can't destroy all that is. And that's because there's a reality that exists beyond words, that is material to the abstraction of words. So there is a sense in which we can destroy all that is, and another sense in which we can't, because something remains. And the thing that remains is the thing that's important. As I understand the act of deconstruction, I understand it as an act that is engaged in the process of dismantling abstraction for the sake of liberating the self from oppressive structures that are caused by abstraction. However, in this process of seeking to destroy or dismantle what is, there are things that remain, and those things have authority. This, I think, is the value of deconstruction, because it seeks out and searches for what remains, for what has authority. This is important because once we find this authority, it provides an existential foundation from which to proceed toward the construction of a rational world. This is why what remains matters, and it's why deconstructing what is matters, because we are trying to get to a foundation so that we can build on top of something that has authority. Deconstructing all that is dangerous. Most things in the human world, in forms of concepts, can be deconstructed because they are constructed, because they're made up of abstractions. They're made up of mere words, and the word itself is interchangeable. So the word itself can be switched out for another word, but the word has a referent. The referent that the word has is something that exists in reality. It's the reality that we are seeking. It's the concretion that we are seeking. But what gets interesting is that as soon as we start to use words, the words themselves, in their own abstract forms, have foundational structures. We are engaged in the act of presupposition as soon as we start engaging in the act of using words, even though we don't realize it. We take the presuppositional structure for granted. It is just presupposed into the foundation of the linguistic structures that we use. And this is one of the reasons I have long thought that Aristotle was so successful with the law of non-contradiction, because it is essentially embedded into the linguistic structure. It is a presupposition of the linguistic structure that is being utilized to expound the law of non-contradiction in the first place. So in a sense, it creates a tremendously powerful conceptual, rational argument or position, because It is leveraging the presuppositional structure of language, of linguistics, of symbols. And it's important to think about this presuppositional structure. It's important to maneuver our own logic in terms of a consciousness of presuppositions. This is essentially what dialectic is in the process of doing. The answer to the question, should we destroy everything that is that we can't, even if we want to, because things remain. But it makes sense that we would want to set out to destroy. It makes great sense that we would want to tear down the abstraction that is built up because we find ourselves oppressed by it. And tragically, our consciousness can't even get to the point where it is aware of this. We can hardly get to the point where we understand or remain cognizant of our own presuppositions, of the presuppositions that we are utilizing within the process of making meaning, within the process of thinking, within the process of executing or constructing intelligent praxis or activity. We don't do it at the level of consciousness. We're not aware that there are underlying assumptions that lie underneath what we are doing. And if we were to shatter every single one of those presuppositions, we would be left in a state of psychosis, most likely. But this can't be done. It can't be done because built into our neurobiology, built into the process of our own body, is an inability to do that. There are things that the mind, that consciousness hides from us within our body. Our heart's beating all the time, but we're not aware of it. There's blood flowing through our system all the time, but we're not aware of it. This is not brought into our consciousness. The ground of all things, including everything I'm saying now, including you listening to this, is the fact that you have a healthy, functioning body and brain. That I have a healthy, functioning body and brain. That's the foundation of all things. Everything goes back to the healthy functioning, the healthy developmental process of the individual that eventually develops into a place of competent thought, our high-level rationality, our consciousness. And so this underlying presuppositional structure from which we are driven on, if we attack it, if we make it our own pursuit, disciplined pursuit of consciousness, to identify it and become aware of it, then we will have the power to destroy many things that are, because we will attack them at the presuppositional level. Most importantly, we don't get to choose what's at the presuppositional level. That's not within our choice. We are, in a sense, born into it. We are born into it. And so cultures have presuppositions. They're not conscious of those presuppositions. At the point a culture becomes aware of its presuppositions and transcends those presuppositions, a culture is most likely at a point of transcendence, a point of going through a paradigm shift, because the underlying assumptions which make up the constructs of that culture are no longer broad enough for the consciousness that is expanded past those presuppositions, past those axioms. So it's necessary, if we're interested in expanding consciousness, to allow this process to play out, to allow those presuppositions to die, so that we can expand our awareness, our consciousness, into higher domains of awareness, which should lead to higher domains of intelligence. The point for a self-conscious primate should always be the expansion of intelligence, which begins with the negation of the affirmation of our intelligence. In other words, we see ourselves as impulsive hyper primates, and we're always trying to overcome this. We must always be trying to overcome this because it sabotages us. So the point is to try to strive for higher intelligence, and this is achieved when we expand the presuppositional structures that lie at the heart of our constructs and our concepts. When those are expanded by becoming aware of them and seeing their limitations, then consciousness moves into new domains. And I think that this act of being aware at this level requires a communitarian effort to uphold the awareness of it, because the solitary mind will forget and fall back into the lure or the convincingness of culture, will be caught up in the flow of culture. Being caught up in the flow of culture is not a bad thing. It is the point. It is the point. But cultures need to be transcended. And the point is to construct an intelligent culture and then allow the species to get caught up and be convinced and be a practitioner of that culture until the species once again expands its consciousness and goes beyond the presuppositions that are inherent in culture, thereby allowing the species to expand into new culture and thereby increase its capacity of intelligence.